My name is Leslie, and in September of 2012, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. In November, I did have a mastectomy, and fortunately, my pathology came back clean, so that means it didn't go into my lymph nodes, it didn't affect anything else, so I didn't need to have radiation and chemo, which was a huge, huge relief, and I was able to go on to a full reconstruction surgery. The ironic part of the story, though, and the point of this conversation is that 4 weeks prior to my diagnosis, I had a normal mammogram, and the letter came back telling me to come back in a year, which we all love to get. We call it the happy gram. You feel like you did your job and you're good for another year. And I am the person who never misses a year. A few years ago, when I had a routine mammogram, the technician made a very sort of off-the-cuff comment. She wanted to redo a particular angle because she felt it didn't come out so great, and she made a comment that I had dense breast tissue. She never went on to tell me anything more about that or what that meant, and I didn't really pursue it either, but that stuck in my mind. So when you have a mammogram, or you look at one online and you see a picture of a mammogram, there's a lot of black in the imaging, that typical image that you might see, and then weird things kind of show up. When you have dense tissue, there's more white on that image. And so that is an obstacle, because if there is a cancer present, it's white also. So what you have is white on white, and that makes an impossible read. When I had my mammogram, when I was scheduling for my mammogram in 2011, I decided that because I had dense breast tissue, I wanted to have an ultrasound. And the woman at the desk was really sweet, and she was booking my mammogram, and she said, "I'm sorry, we really can't do that. You need to have that ordered by a doctor. You can't just order that yourself." And that's usually ordered when they find something on your mammogram. And I was pretty upset with this, and I went to my gynecologist, and I kind of told her that I really wanted to have an ultrasound because I knew I had dense breast tissue. And she listened to me, and she knew how intent I was. And so with her help, we kind of figured out a way to get a referral for me to get a breast ultrasound. And I am so glad that I did. In 2012, in the summer, I go for my mammogram, I go for my ultrasound, and he finds a spot that did not show up 7 days prior on my mammogram. He wasn't overly concerned, but he wanted to do a needle biopsy just to be sure that everything was okay, and I did not expect anything to come from it. And then sure enough, he found out that there was a small cancerous tumor, and he confirmed that it was very small, it was stage 1, and it needed to come out. We're looking at lumpectomy, radiation to follow. So come and see me, bring your husband, we're going to have a consultation. So we did, and we did a second ultrasound because he wanted to show my husband exactly where the spot was, and sure enough, he found a second spot. The tissue was so dense he couldn't even find the second spot the first time. So now I've got 2 spots. And at this point, he did refer me to a wonderful, wonderful place called Dartmouth, where I got the best care on the planet, and they took me through the whole procedure with MRI to get a full understanding of what was going on, and there were 2 malignant spots in my right breast, and they were small. They were 5.5, I think was one of them, the largest one. The second one came in at 3 point something. Very tiny, stage 1, but I was looking at a mastectomy now. And the only thing I was praying for at this point was that I didn't need to have chemo and radiation. So in November, I had the mastectomy, and the pathology came back, and my surgeon calls me, and she tells me so happily that everything was fine, the lymph nodes were clean, the margins were clean, and that it was probably likely that I was not going to need chemo or radiation, but that was up to the oncologist to confirm. And I cried for about 20 minutes because I knew I had dodged 2 huge bullets there. And the last thing she said to me on the phone was, you know, if you had waited a year, we'd be having a very different conversation right now. The point that I want to tell anybody who's willing to listen is that you need to find out if you have dense tissue. And the only way you're going to find out is if you ask. They cannot tell you when you're getting your mammogram, and it's usually not written on the report that you get in the mail. So you have to get it from the doctor who your reports go to, your gynecologist, your primary care physician, whoever's getting that report, someone's getting a copy of it. Or you have to ask. You have to go out of your way to find out. If you have dense tissue, the mammogram is not an effective diagnostic tool. It's a letdown. It's false security. If I had waited a year, I'd be in an advanced stage. If I didn't have an ultrasound to pinpoint the 2 spots that were lurking in my right breast. And so now I just want everybody to know about dense breast tissue, the whole concept of knowing that that could be there. You can't feel it. You go for breast exams and there's no way that they can feel that. It clearly has nothing to do with size. It's a genetic makeup. I've learned that 40% of the women between the age of 20 and 65 have dense breast tissue. That's a lot of women who are depending on their mammograms to tell them something that they're not going to find out. The mammogram is not letting them down. The radiologist is not letting them down. It's just technically there's no way that a mammogram can see through dense tissue. It's just not possible. When I became involved with all the wonderful caregivers at Dartmouth, I had the best breast surgeon on the planet and the best plastics guy who put me back together and made me perfect again. So there is a happy ending to this. The best part is that I have the ability to keep other people from going through worse stages or more advanced stages of cancer if they can pay attention to that early detection. I learned about a very informative website called areyoudense.com, and they have a wonderful Facebook page too. And I have seen story after story after story. And this was started by a woman in Connecticut who, sadly enough, was diagnosed with an advanced stage of breast cancer. And then a couple of weeks later got her letter in the mail saying that her mammogram was just fine. And these are just layers of stories of how this unfolds. And I thought to myself, my God, that could have been me. But it wasn't. So now nobody wants that to happen to the next woman. So I kept thinking, God, if I could just keep one person from being diagnosed too late, if I can keep one person out of radiation and chemo, then it's worth telling people that they might have dense tissue and that they need to go and ask. It's a simple question. You have a mammogram, we're all doing it, we all know we're supposed to have it. Ask if you have dense tissue. If the answer is yes, ask, beg, and insist on having an ultrasound, and then get the information you need. And for more information, you can go to areyoudense.com because there are boatloads of information there that can guide anybody through it.